I smell this?
What's up, Frank? You want some later? Hold on.
It could be like one of those maniacal, like,
Boop.
I'm just gonna ask you like repeat questions just for the camera.
Ask away.
Hey, what's your name?
My name's Kadar.
Okay, what do you do?
I'm an artist. I make paintings, mostly.
Okay, when did you start doing like drawing and stuff?
Probably when I was a little kid. In 3rd grade, I think, was when I realized I wanted to be an artist. You can put Frank. Oh.
What did you have to do to become an artist?
I'm not sure how to answer that.
Like, did you have to have schooling or something? Like,
I did go to art school, but do you mean more how did I get to a place where making art was my career, or how did I become?
yeah.
Because
Like, you could start with like the schooling and stuff, and then like maybe like did you have to like get a studio, and like how do you get like?
Oh sure. So I mean, I think I was always an artist because that's always what I wanted to do. But as far as being able to have that as a career, I went to art school at the Cooper Union, which is an art school in the city, and it's a pretty hard school to get into, partly because at the time they gave all students full tuition scholarships, which was great. And so I went to school there for 4 years, and then after I graduated, I basically just tried to find a job that, that would involve me in the contemporary art world in some way, shape, or form. So I got a job working at a gallery. After months and months of trying to find a job, I found a job doing just odd jobs at a gallery in the city, and then also kind of helping out one of the owners around the house for a while. And through that I met a number of people and was able to kind of get a better understanding of what was necessary to have a career as an artist. And I was able to start kind of navigating from there. At that time I had a live workspace and like a big loft in the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood of Brooklyn. This was 15 years ago. Frank, come here. Come here, buddy. And so I guess at that point, like, part of what I needed to do as an artist was meet people involved, that could give me career advice or be examples or help me understand what I would need to do, and do that to like pay my bills and then keep working on my artwork when I wasn't, working for someone else.
So why did you want to become an artist?
I don't know. I'm not sure how to answer that. I think it was a way to kind of connect with people and express myself and share and do all these things that I like doing and experience these things that I like doing. And it was like something that I could do that was positive and that made me feel good and that made other people feel good and set up those kind of dynamics. I think it's probably the best way to put it.
What benefits do you get from being an artist?
Benefits?
Yeah. Personal or like...
It's mostly personal benefits. I don't have any health, I don't get, because I work for myself, I don't get any the benefits that you get from working and, having a pension or
like, I know you travel
or any of that stuff. So I mean, though I end up supplying those things for myself as a, individual, as a sole proprietor, as a, self-employed person. But I mean, the benefits, I think, on a personal level are huge. It's like I get to do something I enjoy doing every day. I get to express myself, which is also like really, I think, good for my mental and physical health. I get to research and investigate things that I find interesting and exciting, while also doing something that I think is meaningful and something that can both help me and help other people. Psychologically, emotionally, intellectually. And then, I get to travel a fair bit. I get to have a very flexible schedule, which I like a lot. So I don't have a boss. I'm only beholden to myself. And I get to meet a lot of interesting people. And I also get to bring my dog to work, which is pretty nice.
Yeah. I was gonna ask something. Can you tell me like a story about like traveling that was exciting?
I have a lot of good stories. Let me
And first of all, like, why did you travel there too?
Let's see. What's like a really good story from traveling for my work? There's a couple. I mean, I got to go to Japan in 2010 for an exhibition. That was super exciting. I'd always wanted to go there. There's no particular highlight that was like amazing from it, but I really I really like Japanese food, so I just like ate a lot and went to a lot of really amazing restaurants that I had researched about previously. I've had a couple good trips to London. I really like London. I've done a number of exhibitions there because one of the galleries that represents me is based there. I've had a lot of great trips there. I have a number of friends that live there. I've gotten to go out into the British countryside after exhibitions. Stop. You just relax. You just relax. You're not allowed to bark at people right now. So that was really cool. On one of those trips, I went down to Spain for a weekend to see another friend's exhibition that was opening, stuff like that. Trying to think about what other. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I get to travel a lot. It's just nice. It's basically becomes this thing where, not that I travel a ton, but I travel frequently enough where I have friends in different cities. So when I go to these different cities, I get to just see friends in different places, which is really nice. And there's always great art in all these cities too. So when I travel, I get to see a lot of great art.
So what's your favorite art style?
That's kind of a tough question to ask, because I mean, obviously I like the way that I make art, but I don't know that there's any one style that I really like more than others. Like, I like painting in general, but I think actually some of my favorite artists that are making art right now are like video artists or photographers, or doing stuff with the internet and things like that, just because it seems very relevant to a lot of concerns that I think are important in the present moment.
So I'm gonna get into paintings now.
Sure.
So, how long does it take to make a painting?
For me to finish a painting in the way that I make them takes anywhere from a year to 2 years, I think. But that involves a lot of series of paintings in the way that you would conventionally think of a painting, like putting a brush on canvas and making an image, or making a series of gestures. So each painting that I make, when I consider them finished, usually involves having made 3, 4, 5 paintings in the conventional sense, and having them be scraped, deteriorated, worked over, reworked into the object that you end up seeing.
So what's elaborate on that? What's the process? You start with a blank canvas and.
Yeah, sort of. In a way, I don't even like starting with a blank canvas, because I think a lot of the way that I make work has been about trying to kind of avoid or sidestep a lot of the more traditional dynamics and relationships that are set up about artists making a painting on a canvas. So I ended up actually taking canvases and using them as drop cloths in my spray booth, so they get all this extra information on them. Then I stretch them, so I'm never painting on something that's just the blank white canvas, because I think that's kind of a weird, all this extra information on them. Then I stretch them, so I'm never painting on something that's just like the blank white canvas, because I think that's kind of like a weird. It's like there's almost too much pressure in that as an object, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I like it to be sullied and messed up a little bit, and then I'll make a painting on that. And then after that, it hangs out and dries for a while, and I look at it, and then I take it off the stretcher bars and I scrape it with a razor blade, and then I paint over it again with just like a primer, which is just like a solid color to hide everything, and then I sand it and a little bit comes through, then I stretch it again and look at it, and then usually end up painting on it again. And sometimes I'll paint a similar image or a similar subject matter, sometimes I'll paint a totally different image or a different subject matter that I think relates to the one that I've already removed as kind of like an idea, or a set of ideas or a set of concepts that might relate to each other. And then I'll repeat that process of making that painting and then undoing it and scraping it and priming it and sanding it and then painting on it again, and keep going until they get to being something that I think looks okay and feels okay and simultaneously contains all this information that I think might be somewhat of a statement or a coherent thought, or something like that.
How much is a painting?
Usually depends on size, but anywhere from $16,000 to $26,000, I guess, depending. But I only get half of that after I sell, because the gallery that sells them gets the other half, just like most other retail relationships.
Yeah. About where is it in the process of what you're doing?
So the one behind me is, I don't know, I've done, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think this one has had a lot of paintings go into it. That one has like 5 or 6 paintings that I've made and scraped away and remade on top of it. Hopefully this is the last stage. And then after that dries, I'll scrape it and put a primer on it and sand it, and hopefully it'll look alright. I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed. So that one's been taking quite some time.
How long?
Now that I do that first one, it's got to be almost 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, they all just, you can see they all just kind of hang out in stacks, and I take them in and, they go in the stack, and they come out of the stack, and I work on them some more, and then they go back in the stack, and then they come back out, and I just, keep rotating them all around and try to start new ones from time to time.
Can you turn it around here?
Yeah, sure. Come here, Frank. I'm structuring Frank's massage. There you go, buddy. No. What would you like to see? There's just lots of paintings all around. I have all these paintings hanging out.
Let's start.
They're all drying.
Sure.
Sure. This is a painting of a frog. It's mostly based on this character from Martin Kippenberger's artistic oeuvre named Fred the Frog. I think it was kind of like an anthropomorphic self-portrait that he made. And he's hanging on a wire because he might fall down. And it's kind of an amalgam of a couple other ideas that I've been interested in and playing with. So underneath this, there's a painting of another frog, and then there's also a painting of a cat hanging on a wire. So I've been working on this one, for, was that this year, last year? I can't remember. Oh, probably at least a year, maybe a little over, maybe a year and a half. Like fall of 2016, I guess, maybe. This is a painting of a landscape. This is a painting from an illustration from these little booklets called Soul Flight. Yeah, these two are both first layers, I guess you could say. So,
I knew that looked really familiar.
Yeah. So these are all just starting. They'll hang out for a while. I'll scrape them down, and then I'm not totally sure what's gonna get painted on top of them, but we'll see. Figure it out. This is the first time I've painted a landscape in a while. It's kind of nice and enjoyable to do.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
Thanks. It's nice to make pretty paintings, even though they're not that interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are a couple other. This is a big painting I've been working on for a few years. Should be done soon.
Have you come up this like style of painting?
Oh, it took a really long time. I don't know that it was something that just I came up with, like I had an idea. It's something that developed over a number of years and was a reaction to a way that I was working previously. And it kind of stemmed out of a number of things, one of which was an interest in like fantasy role-playing games and the systems that were used to regulate those types of games, and trying to use those as a system, like trying to translate that type of system into my painting practice as a way to kind of like create an analogy between role-playing and art making.
Okay. Now can you talk about like high school and like how you got into art like from that?
Well, I was always into art, but I was very fortunate that I went to a high school with a very developed art department. So I just tried to take as many art classes as I could when I could. And it's like when we developed, like we had like an AP art class available to us, which we're able to use for college credit, but which my teacher, who was really like a really engaged and really fantastic teacher, like used as a process to help us develop portfolios to apply to art school. So she was really focused on translating our interest in art in high school into going to art school and potentially pursuing art long term, and trying to foster that in the way that she approached how she taught us, which was really cool. Doing the art thing and focusing on art was not like the most popular thing at school, but that was fine. Who cares? Like, most of those people are not doing interesting things now. And most of them weren't that interesting then, so it doesn't really matter, even if it was a little frustrating. And art school was great. It was super strange. And made, my best friends that I'm still super close with. Because we're all just a bunch of weirdos hanging out and making stuff we like. Which is, I don't know, all you could ever ask of out of life.
Like, did you get the studio like at the beginning, or like?
I've been in this building for 10 years, but it's been a slow evolution. I started off coming in, subletting a small space, not the space I'm currently in, but the space next door, just over that wall. On the other side of that wall behind you, subletting it from a friend of mine who had a lease on this whole floor. Then after a year, 2 years of that, he told me that this space that we're currently sitting in was opening up and it had some windows, and he wanted to get me in here because I was doing some stuff with spray paint, which was smelly otherwise and bothering my neighbors. So he got me in here in 2009. Then in 2000 and I guess 12, his lease was coming up and he didn't want to continue managing the studio space, so he asked me if I wanted to take over his lease because he knew I had just sold a painting or two, so I had a little bit of cash. Which time I said yes, and then I took over the lease from him, and now I manage this floor of studios and have a bigger space, so I was able to take over a studio next to mine after someone moved out. Which was great.
The whole thing?
Yeah, the whole floor, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I collect rent from everybody else and pay the overall rent for the studio, pay for the utilities, problem solve, play mayor.
That's cool. I never knew that.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good deal for me, and it's a good deal for I don't charge a lot. I've kept the rents relatively low, especially considering what other people charge in the neighborhood. So it's nice because I get to have a good community of people who are responsible and respectful of the space, while I also get to subsidize my own studio through doing that. It doesn't take too much effort. So I'm really thankful to my friend who set me up with it, because I don't know, it definitely would have. It'd be a lot tougher to be an artist full time if I didn't have that going on.
So, like, what did people like just contact you, or you contact them to like when they want to get a painting or something?
Oh, so that's like that's the right way to put it. It's a little bit of all of that. So I work with 2 galleries, and so these galleries, what their job is to exhibit art and sell it and place it, essentially. And so how a gallery functions is they have usually what they call a roster of artists, in the same way that a basketball team has a roster of centers, forwards, and guards. And they have this a gallery has this list of artists, and what they do is they do exhibitions with the different artists on their roster, sometimes putting new artists in, sometimes removing artists, sometimes letting either themselves or letting other people curate group shows with groups of artists. But primarily they show those artists maybe once every 2 years and give them time to develop new work, and they sell the work, and then in the meanwhile they try to place other works that maybe the artist completes, try to help them get into other shows, help them try to get articles written about them and the like. So I work with 2 galleries right now. One is in London and one is in Chicago. And they usually contact me because someone is contacting them about wanting a painting. And then I'll be like, well, I have no paintings done, or I have 3 paintings done, and I'll send them pictures, and they'll show them to the client and then navigate selling them. And for them, doing that kind of promotion and selling and I don't know, representation or whatever else, they get 50% of the retail price of the painting. Or the sale price of the painting, I guess is a better way to put it. So if I sell that painting behind me for $16,000, if the gallery sells it to one of their clients, they'll get $8,000 and I'll get $8,000.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So,
At the same point, it's my job to go out and talk to people and meet people and promote myself to a degree also. But then the gallery is also always doing that for me, and the gallery maintains relationships with a whole host of clients, curators, writers, and everything else that then they petition, I guess you could say, on my behalf. So after college, it just seemed like in art school, the school did not teach me about the business of being an artist at all, and didn't teach me at all about how the contemporary art world functioned as a workplace, essentially, right? And so, to me, it seemed like the best way to learn about that was to try to go work at a gallery, see what went on inside a gallery, and then meet people who worked at galleries and some of the artists there, and then maybe they would be able to both teach me, what went into being a professional, artist, being an artist and being able to make a career out of it, and then simultaneously give me some understanding of the gallery side of things, because I knew that I wanted to try to exhibit in galleries. So my first job out of college, as I mentioned, was working at this gallery in Chelsea that I kind of just came upon by wandering around and going into galleries and asking if they were hiring anybody. And it took a little while to really get in there, but they started giving me odd jobs and asked me to do help with this thing or that thing, or this exhibition or this opening or whatever, and I kept doing that, and I did it in a way that they liked, so they kept asking me to come back and slowly gave me more and more responsibility as I also pushed for more and more responsibility. And then through that job, I was just able to meet a lot of other artists, art collectors, other gallerists, writers, and just a host of people that comprise the contemporary art world. And through those connections, I was able to, promote myself and kind of navigate into a situation where I could start exhibiting my own work. And I mean, that's, even though that was just one kind of specific instance, I feel in general it's largely functioned in that way. Just continually going to things, meeting people, talking to people, while also trying to maintain a diligent studio practice so that I make better work. So yeah, I did an exhibition. I started working with a gallery, showing at a gallery in Chelsea in like 2005. Did a couple exhibitions with them. They closed when the financial market crashed. I just kept working, and then was able to, kind of meet some other gallerists and do exhibitions with them, and then, just kind of continue from there.
So that was when you got out of like college, or?
The first gallery that I worked at, I started working at in early 2003, late 2002, which was after I'd graduated from college and then come back, and honestly I was like working at the Gap for 6 months because I couldn't find any other job, But I kept like kind of going to stuff and coming into the city and pushing, and then eventually my friend had a room open up in this loft, and I found this job at this gallery, and they kind of lined up around the same time, and that was it.
That's a cool story.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I'm glad it worked out all right. Definitely learned a lot.
When did you sell your first painting?
I don't know, maybe 2003 or 2004, maybe, if I'm thinking correctly. I had a series of little portraits that I put into this, like, I don't know, this, like, room booth thing at this, like, art fair that I had also done, like, work for. And, I'd met this, like, curator who was getting a room, and he was like, yeah, just give me a couple paintings. Like, sure. I think that, like, one of them sold for, like, $800 or something like that. It was, like, 2004. I was really excited.
Just the start.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I think that's it.
Cool.
Say bye.
Bye.
Say bye, Kadar. Bye, Kadar. Like, I did a trick then.
Playing a couple pieces people have made.
You see this? There it is. Is that big enough?
Sure. Yeah.
Big, big. No, I do. Yeah, big. I can't break it, so it can't go. That's right. Yeah, yeah, that. You're addicted.
Yeah, there you go.
And then, what? Sit? Sit. How do you do it? Sit. How do you sit?
You just like hold your hand up, I'll sit.
Sit.
Nope, no.
Okay, that's good enough.
It's fine, Frank. Good job.
Good job.